I'm meteorologist Brad Winter from Region Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. And we've got a lot to talk about regarding this upcoming storm, so let's get right into it. And so we're going to start off by taking a look at the days leading up to the storm system that's coming on Sunday. And so we're just going to start off by going through Friday here, and we could see some showers out ahead of this big storm system, such a potent storm system that we're getting some rain well out ahead of this before it even pulls out of the Rockies here. So we're getting into Friday afternoon, and we've got some rain across North Dakota, eventually kind of spreading into northern Minnesota as well as we get into the Friday evening hours. Through the overnight hours, Friday night, more of the same, just some scattered light rain across North Dakota, northern parts of Minnesota. Saturday morning, here we are. And then kind of as we get more so into Saturday afternoon, it looks like we got maybe just a little more intense type of rain that begins to develop across northwest, north central parts of North Dakota. And then that begins to lift north right when this low begins to slowly move out of the Rockies. You can see that area of moisture just begin to surge northward as this low kind of moves out and pushes everything to the north just in time before we get the bulk of this storm to come out and into our area. We're going to start off by taking a look at the storm and kind of focusing more so on the east, first of all, kind of around Minnesota, and just that possibility of severe weather for Sunday. So that's where we're going to start, and then we'll move westward after this and talk about the possibility of snow. So as we take a look at this upper level system, at the upper level portion of this system rather, and how it begins to really carve out into the western parts of the United States, and we begin to see some stronger winds ejecting out of the Rockies and eventually pushing into Minnesota here. Once we get into kind of that Sunday evening time frame here, you can see some pretty decent winds just beginning to push into the southwestern parts of Minnesota late Sunday into Sunday evening. Now, about 5,000 feet off the surface, right, the 850 millibar level, this is what we call kind of that low-level jet, or that low-level jet stream here. And as we get through Sunday and more so into Sunday evening, same type of thing. Look at that jet, that low-level jet really begin to ramp up here as we get into Sunday evening. So we've got some strong south-southwesterly winds at the, closer to the surface, and then a little bit further up, a little more southwesterly. So there is that little bit of rotation going on within the atmosphere as we get into Sunday evening. And we take a look at the dew points, and we notice these dew points far in the south begin to surge northward as that low pressure begins to move out of the Rockies. And here you can see those dew points begin to move northward as we get into the Sunday morning time frame. And then those 60s start to creep a little bit closer by Sunday evening. But when we're talking about severe weather, there might be a problem with this, at least within our area, when we're talking about South Dakota and Minnesota, and that might be the temperatures. They might not warm up enough as we step through and we kind of get into late Sunday into Sunday evening. Temperatures may only make it into the 60s. Those 70s might stay south of our area into Nebraska and Iowa. Not real great when we're talking about the potential for severe weather. And so we flip over and we take a look at the CAPE, the convective available potential energy. And as I've stated before, many times before, how much powder is in that keg. So how explosive can these storms be? Are they just going to blow up? Are they going to fire? Are they just going to be thunderstorms? And what we're looking at is the most unstable CAPE right now. So this isn't at the surface necessarily. This is a sample throughout the atmosphere going, what is the most CAPE, the highest CAPE values we're going to get out of this? And as we go through this Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon, you can see all in all, it doesn't really start to spike until more so Sunday evening when we get into that 1,200 joules per kilogram. And as I've said before, you kind of need 1,200 or more to get a good, decent storm. But here's the problem. When we go down to the surface and take a look at the CAPE values there, that's more really important when we're talking about those really severe storms, the ones where we're just, talking about the tornadic storms. It's not that impressive. Here we are, CAPE values right around that same time frame, Sunday evening, and it's a paltry 400 joules per kilogram. Not real good. So What that's telling me right now, if there is any type of severe weather out there, it's going to be elevated. And if it's going to be elevated, that means we're going to be dealing probably with some hail and some strong winds associated with that. The tornadic threat just likely won't be there. In fact, if we take a look at the North American model, this is the short range model that's finally just starting to get into that time frame. It's starting to finally forecast out into Sunday evening. They don't even forecast anything out ahead of this system. They really don't have any kind of storms out there. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. We have a lot of strong mid-level winds that are pushing in through this part of the state that I think we're still going to get some thunderstorms. We're probably still going to get some severe. They're just not going to be that widespread severe that we, maybe could get. In fact, if we shift over to a different model, to the European model, you can kind of see where some of these storms want to develop across eastern South Dakota and down in through Iowa, and maybe even some storms far back into North Dakota and eventually spread northward into northern parts of Minnesota as well as we get through the night, Sunday night. So you can see how possibly some of these storms might develop. But again, if anything becomes severe, it looks like the best chance to me would probably be possibly with this line, that might develop down in southern parts of Minnesota Sunday evening. So very much up in the air. These models are still really having a hard time getting a handle on this. So this is very preliminary right now, but this is kind of what I'm going with at this early stage when it comes to severe weather across southern parts of Minnesota. And so, guys, it's early yet. I mean, I'm talking to you here Thursday night. You might be watching this Friday sometime, but as of right now, I mean, this storm system is still off the coast. I mean, we don't even have the upper air samples from the United States to get really good samples of what's going on out there. So until this system finally makes it ashore, the models are going to be kind of having a hard time, at least, really trying to figure out what exactly will happen come Sunday. So with that said, let's shift our focus to the west and let's look at the winter side of this particular storm. So we're taking a look at the North American model. Once again, that's the short range model that kind of really focuses in on the United States. And we can see here we are Saturday night into the early part of Sunday morning, and that low just beginning to move into the central parts of the plains and out of the Rockies, and continues to move to the east and eventually to the northeast. Here we are by Sunday evening now. Most of that snow still residing out in the high plains region, far western parts of the Dakotas, mainly into Montana and Wyoming as we get into Sunday evening. And then as we move this along and get through the overnight hours Sunday night and into Monday morning, you can see a little bit more of that snow wants to creep into western parts of North Dakota. Now, if you took a look at my post from earlier, if you are a subscriber, you might have seen the post from earlier and just how much quicker this particular model was compared to everything else. This is the current run, and notice how that low pressure is just kind of coming out into Nebraska to southern parts of South Dakota. Here's the run earlier from this morning. Notice how it was way faster this morning from this morning's run. It's way out here into northeastern parts of South Dakota. And so now by this evening's run, it's starting to fall a little more in line with some of these longer range models. So again, even this model, which it typically kind of helps me determine what other models to focus on, is having a hard time with this system at this point. And so if we compare other models, that this is Monday morning, and this is the North American model. This is a Canadian model, fairly similar as far as the location on Monday morning, so actually not too bad. This is a longer range North American model as well. A little bit further east, has that snow maybe just a little bit further east in some portions of North Dakota. Again, the Canadian model, and then the European model, just to kind of compare with our North American and our European, just a little off. Just, those are some of the subtle differences that they are showing at this point. But I think just to kind of give us an idea, I will show you this European model and just kind of show you what this is currently forecast, is because I think this has probably got a decent handle on how this is going to develop. here we are late Sunday. This is right around midnight, Sunday night, early Monday morning. You can see some snow just beginning to push into the western parts of the Dakotas. And then as we get into the very early parts of Monday morning, right around 7 a.m., that snow continues across the western parts of the Dakotas, maybe more so down into South Dakota at this point, and then moving right along into the afternoon hours. Looks like we get more warm air that kind of wraps its way back in, at least according to this model. I do think, however, as this begins to pull away, there probably is going to be just enough cold air to allow some snow to develop. Probably not going to really accumulate much, but just don't be surprised even as some of these areas in the far eastern parts of North Dakota gets just a few flakes late Monday as this system pulls out of the region. All right, so that's all well and good, Brad. You're the meteorologist. What do you think? All right, well, this is kind of what I can tell you at this point, right? This area out here in red's got the best chance for seeing some accumulating snow. Very possible many of these areas are going to pick up 3 inches or more. I think some of these areas down into northwestern parts of South Dakota, and especially down here across the Black Hills, could pick up as much as 6 inches of snow with this particular system. The way it's looking right now, some of this could shift a little bit, but right now, that's my best chance for picking up some accumulations of snow. Like I said, maybe 3 inches or more. Now, this area in blue has got a moderate chance of picking up some accumulations. How much? That's kind of the hard part right now. Probably between that 1 to 3 inch range is possible within that area at this point, the way things are looking now. So I think as you get kind of further off into the eastern part of that blue area, it's going to be closer to an inch. Maybe as you get a little bit further to the western part of that blue area, it might be closer to that 3 inch mark or so. But that's kind of where I'm looking at as far as just at least a moderate chance of some accumulating snow. Now this area in green here will probably just pick up a trace of snow, meaning at some point they're probably just going to be seeing some light snow falling at some point. That's really not going to stick. Most of it's going to be rain, but don't be surprised if you see some flakes falling in there. And I did kind of extend this just a little bit further east than some of the models were showing at this point, and that's just because as maybe some of that colder air works its way in and that low continues to move off to the north and east, that might be just enough once it kind of begins to taper off that some snow might fall just as that storm exits on Monday. And now the remaining areas east of this green line out and through here, everything east of there is likely just going to be all rain. Now this area down here in yellow, of course, down in southeastern parts of South Dakota, southern Minnesota, that's where we've got our chance for some severe weather late Sunday into Sunday evening. And of course, some of those storms could actually, like I said, make its way back into North Dakota and northern parts of Minnesota as well. But I think the severe chances will remain in the south. Whew. So that was a lot. That was a lot going on. We're talking about severe weather, maybe across southern Minnesota. We're talking about thunderstorms across North Dakota and northern Minnesota. We're talking about snow out in western parts of the Dakotas. It's just one of those storm systems right now. And of course, this could shift. We don't know enough just yet. I mean, if that track of the low pressure moves just a little bit east or west, that's going to change some of the dynamics of what could happen across your area. So just keep that in mind. So make sure you subscribe so that as I see things change, I will upload a video. You know when I've uploaded a video, and you can take a look at what I'm thinking is going to be the latest on what the models are saying, what I think is going to happen with this storm. And also, if you haven't done so, become a member. I think what I'm going to do probably Saturday evening is have a members only live stream where I'm taking a live look at what's currently going on out there. Members can directly ask questions and get answers right on the spot. Now, if you're not going to do that, hey, just even leave a comment down below, ask a question. Hey, depending on where you're at, and I will gladly answer it on the comments below. And if you don't want to do that, just hit the thumbs up button. That helps me as well if you just appreciate my little video out here. And hopefully it's going to help you decide on what to do come Sunday and into Monday. So, all right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up. This has gotten long enough, obviously. So for Region Weather Live, I am meteorologist Brad Warner. Everybody have a good day.